Hello and welcome. Today's story is called The Therapist. I really hope you like it. If you do, I'd appreciate if you hit that like button and please subscribe. Thank you. Now, let's get on with the story. Kate Carter never expected anything unusual to happen that gray morning. She walked down a quiet street with her coat pulled tight against the cold wind, just trying to get through another routine day. She booked her first therapy session simply because she felt overwhelmed after a difficult year. She just wanted someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge her. When she opened the glass door to the small office on Pine Street, she didn't realize what was waiting for her. The waiting room was peaceful, with soft light and the smell of cedar. The kind of room that made you breathe a little deeper. Kate sat in a chair near the window, watching raindrops slide down the glass. She tried to calm her thoughts, but her mind kept circling around everything she has avoided, facing loneliness, exhaustion, and a quiet ache she couldn't name. Then the door opened. A man stepped out, holding a notebook. He looked at her with a steady, patient expression. "Kate Carter, I'm Stephen Hayes," he said, offering a warm smile. "Nice to meet you. Please come in." His voice was soft, and something inside her softened. She didn't know why. It wasn't attraction. Not exactly. It was more like recognition. She had been waiting for someone who could speak gently enough to reach her. She followed him into his office. It was simple, with a bookshelf and a large window overlooking the rainy city. She sat down carefully, unsure of what to expect. Stephen settled into his chair across from her. "When you're ready, you can start, wherever you feel comfortable." His tone wasn't rushed or forced. It was an invitation, not a demand. That alone made her feel seen. Kate took a deep breath. She didn't tell him everything. She wasn't ready for all that. She shared pieces of how work had drained her, how friendships felt distant, how she struggled to navigate the quiet moments when her thoughts grew too loud. She spoke in short sentences, testing the space and her own courage. Stephen listened, really listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look at the clock. He didn't write notes every second, like she had imagined a therapist did. Whenever she paused, he met her eyes with a calm patience that felt rare. "This sounds really heavy to carry alone," he said after a moment. The words were simple, but something about them hit her harder than expected. She felt her throat tighten. "It is," she whispered. Kate felt warmth spread through her chest. He wasn't trying to fix her. He wasn't telling her she should be stronger. He was simply acknowledging her pain. That alone felt like someone had taken a weight off of her shoulders. For the first time in months, she didn't feel invisible. The session moved forward smoothly, but there were small moments when tiny sparks stood out to her. The way he leaned forward when she hesitated, the way he noticed emotions she tried to hide, the way he stayed focused on her as if nothing outside that room mattered. The moment that stayed with her came near the end. She talked about how the year had worn her down little by little, how she often felt she was just pretending to be fine. The air in the room shifted. She glanced back at Stephen, and for a split second, she caught a look in his eyes she couldn't quite name. Something soft, something deeper than simple concern, something he seemed to push down the moment he realized she had seen it. It disappeared quickly, replaced by his usual calm expression. It didn't matter. Kate wasn't imagining it. For that one heartbeat felt like a quiet connection, spoken but unmistakable. She didn't know what it meant. Maybe it meant nothing. Maybe it was just empathy. Maybe she was reading too much into things because she felt fragile and tired, but the feeling lingered. Their session ended with Stephen summarizing her next steps. He didn't sound distant or cold. He sounded invested in her progress, genuinely hoping for her. Kate nodded, grateful, yet unsettled by the warmth she felt toward him. She didn't want to think about it too much. She didn't even want to admit it. It was just a first session. He was a professional. She was a client. Nothing more. Yet as she grabbed her coat and walked toward the door, her heartbeat felt oddly fast. "It was good meeting you," Stephen said, his voice soft. "I look forward to our next session." Something about those simple words stayed with her long after she left the office. She stepped back into the rainy street, the cold air brushing against her face, but her thoughts were still in the warm room behind her. She told herself that she admired him because he was kind, because he was good at his job, because he made her feel calmer than she had felt in a long, long time. Deep down, very deep down, she knew it. She knew it was more complicated. There was something in the way he listened, the way he looked at her, like she mattered. Something in the way he created space for her pain without making her feel weak. She walked quickly through the rain, trying to shake off the strange flutter in her chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. Therapy was supposed to be simple. She pulled her coat tighter around herself and kept walking, telling herself not to think about Stephen again until next week. Yet she knew she wouldn't think about it. She knew she would think about him. She knew she already was. She had no idea that he was thinking about her, too. That one session had quietly changed the direction of both their lives. Every week after the first session, Kate found herself walking toward Stephen's office with a strange mix of calm and nervous energy. She told herself that it was normal to feel connected to a therapist. He listened. He cared. He paid attention. Anyone would feel grateful for that. But each time she opened the door and saw him sitting there, waiting with that steady expression, something inside her reacted too strongly to ignore. Their sessions had a rhythm, almost like breathing. She would talk. He would listen. He would ask small questions that opened big truths. And slowly, week by week, she felt herself changing. She felt lighter, more grounded, more aware of her own emotions. She felt safe. One rainy afternoon, she arrived earlier than usual. Sky was heavy and gray, and she looked tired. Her hair damp from the walk. She tried to hide behind. She tried to hide how drained she felt. But no one noticed immediately. She stood for a moment, then walked to the same small counter near the window. She watched him pour warm water into a cup and placed a tea bag inside. When he handed her the mug, his fingers brushed hers lightly. Not intentionally, not neutral. The simple warmth of the cup felt like comfort she haven't realized she needed. You don't have to talk right away, he said. Just breathe for a moment. She sipped the tea and looked at him. His attention was fully on her, steady and kind. Even though he didn't say anything personal, she felt something warm and quiet in a space between them. Something she wasn't supposed to feel. When she finally spoke, words came easier than she expected. She talked about her long hours at work, the emotional exhaustion, the sense of drifting through her days without purpose. Stephen listened with the same calm focus, leaning slightly forward, his expression thoughtful. He didn't give her complicated advice. He didn't lecture. He just simply offered clarity. It's okay to feel tired, he said. It doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you've been carrying too much alone. Her eyes sting with unexpected emotion. She looked down, hoping he didn't notice, but of course he did. He always noticed. He didn't bring attention to her tears. He didn't make her feel embarrassed. Instead, he lowered his voice, speaking with a gentle sincerity that made her chest tighten. You deserve a rest, Kate. And you deserve support. His tone was professional, careful, but something in the way he said her name felt personal. Like he wanted to believe it for reasons he couldn't explain. She nodded, trying to steady her breathing. Sometimes I just feel invisible, she admitted quietly. You're not invisible, he said, almost immediately. Not at all. His words hit her harder than expected. She lifted her eyes and found him watching her with a soft seriousness, the kind that made her feel more seen than she had in years. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't inappropriate, but it was full of sincerity. Kate noticed small things. She tried not to think too much about the way he created silence in the room. She knew it was his job to listen. The way he did it felt different. It felt personal. One evening, as she talked about losing motivation, Stephen didn't interrupt or offer immediate solutions. Instead, he simply said, your feelings matter. You don't have to hide them. The calm certainty in his tone made her chest warm. She wondered if he talked to all his clients like this, or if he was being extra gentle with her. It was a kind of warmth he didn't openly express, but couldn't fully hide. She couldn't stop thinking about him on nights when she felt alone. One Thursday, she arrived looking especially defeated. Work had been overwhelming, and she felt stretched too thin. She didn't even try to hide it when she took her seat. You don't look like yourself today, Stephen said gently. Kate let out a small, tired laugh. I don't feel like myself. What happened? She explained the situation quickly: the long hours, a difficult coworker, a sense of losing herself in responsibilities. As she talked, she saw Stephen's expression shift. It was concern, but also a quiet frustration that had nothing to do with her. He wished she didn't have to go through this alone. He didn't say it, but she felt it. When she grew quiet, Stephen leaned back slightly, his voice low. You deserve a life that feels good, Kate. Not just a life you have to survive. She didn't know why those words hit her so deeply. Maybe because no one else had ever said them with that kind of conviction. Maybe because she believed him more than she believed herself. The session moved quickly after that, full of honest reflection and emotional clarity. The atmosphere in the room was different, closer, gentler, and Kate felt it. When the hour ended, she stood reluctantly, wishing she had more time. Not because she wanted advice, but because being near him made her feel understood in a way she didn't feel anywhere else. I'll see you next week, he asked. She asked. Of course, he said softly. Take care of yourself until then. The warmth of his tone stayed with her long after she left. As she walked out of the building, she realized something important. No one never crossed the line, never said anything inappropriate or personal. They always stayed professional. But the genuine kindness can feel deeper than anything else. She was growing attached to the way he cared, not romantically, not openly, but emotionally quiet. She didn't know if he felt the same pull she did. But she already suspected the truth. He did. Just quietly as she did. The moment that changed. Everything didn't arrive with drama. It didn't come with raised voices, tears, or anything dramatic. It happened quietly in a normal Thursday evening when the city outside Stephen's office was calm. The sky was a soft blue, and life seemed almost peaceful, yet inside Kate, there was a storm. She didn't know how to hide anymore. She walked into the office feeling unusually fragile, though she tried to mask it with a polite smile. Stephen noticed the shift instantly. He always did. She didn't need to speak for him to sense it. Something she found both comforting and terrifying. You seem somewhere else today, he said softly. Just tired, she replied. But her voice carried the weight of something deeper. They sat down, and for a moment the room felt too quiet. Normally, She eased into talking, but today she didn't know where to begin. Her chest felt tight and her thoughts were tangled. Stephen waited, not pushing, just giving her space. Finally, Kate exhaled. I think I'm losing myself a little. His expression changed, not dramatically, but enough for her to notice a flicker of worry. Tell me what you mean. She looked down at her hands, twisting them together. I feel disconnected. It's from work and people, from everything. Even when I'm surrounded by others, I feel alone. The words came out shaky, like she had been holding them in for too long because she was afraid of what she might see in his eyes. Pity, sympathy, or something even harder to face, understanding. Kate, he said softly, you've been carrying a lot. It makes sense that it feels heavy. She nodded, but her throat tightened. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking through life half asleep and no one notices. No one asks how I'm really doing. No one sees when I'm hurting. She swallowed hard. Except you. The moment she said those words, the air shifted. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Stephen froze for just a half a second, long enough for her to see something raw flash in his eyes. He cleared his throat softly. I noticed because that's my job. She nodded, but she didn't fully believe it. His kindness always felt too personal to be just professional. It felt intentional, genuine. She didn't push the moment, but the silence between them grew fuller, heavier. She tried to continue explaining her week, but her thoughts were scattered. Finally, something she had been scared to say out loud. I feel like I'm trying so hard to be okay for everyone else, but inside, I'm not. Her voice cracked. A small tear rolled down her cheek before she could stop it. She quickly wiped it away, embarrassed. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't know why I'm so emotional. You don't need to apologize, Stephen said quite gently. The sincerity in his voice unmistakable. You're allowed to feel things here. This is your space. She didn't know why, but those words made her chest ache. She felt safe, too safe. Safe enough to reveal thoughts she kept from everyone else. I don't want to feel invisible anymore, she said quietly. Stephen's jaw tightened and something warm flashed in his expressions. Something she wasn't used to seeing. Not from him, not from anyone. "You're not invisible," he said, his voice low. "Not even close." For a long moment, they just sat there in silence. Not an empty silence, but one filled with emotions neither of them knew how to name. Kate could feel her heartbeat picking up. She didn't know what to do with the warmth spreading through her chest. She looked up slowly, her eyes meeting his. That was the moment everything changed. Stephen's gaze held hers for a second too long. Not uncomfortably, but meaningfully. His eyes weren't just kind, they were full of something deeper, something he was trying to hide, something he had no right to feel. He looked away quickly, running his hand over his jaw as if grounding himself. "Kate, there's something I need to say." He spoke quietly and carefully. "It's getting harder for me to stay objective." Her heart skipped. She almost didn't understand him at first. "What do you mean?" He took a slow breath, eyes fixed on the corner of the room instead of her. Therapists are supposed to keep certain distance, not emotional distance, but professional distance. "I find myself caring too much." Stephen shifted his head slightly. "I mean, concern. I feel concerned about how much pressure you're under. You don't have to pretend with me." His eyes flickered in full of emotion. He was working hard to contain. "Kate, there are some things I should not say." Her heart raced, his shoulders tense, as if he was fighting with himself. The boundary they had held for months suddenly felt too thin, too fragile. "What things?" she asked softly. He looked directly at her, and then for the first time, he didn't hide the conflict in his expression. "I wish," he began. "I wish your life felt easier." Stephen stood up slowly, signaling the session was ending early. He didn't explain why. He didn't need to. His shaking voice told her everything she wasn't supposed to hear. "We'll continue next week," he said gently. Kate nodded, her heart heavy and full at the same time. She walked out of the office feeling changed, uncertain, but more aware than ever of the quiet tension they'd been avoiding. For the first time since meeting him, she knew without a doubt that the feelings she struggled to ignore weren't one-sided. He felt them too. He was just trying harder not to show it. The week after that tense session felt endless for both of them. Kate tried to distract herself with work, errands, and quiet nights at home. But the memory of Stephen's unfinished words replayed in her mind over and over. I wish. That one moment sat in her heart like a secret. She wasn't sure she wanted to understand. She tried to convince herself she misread the situation, that he only felt concerned, not something deeper. But her heart refused to listen. Stephen wasn't doing any better. He barely slept. He tried to keep his routine steady, meeting clients, writing notes, keeping his voice calm. But there was an ache beneath every hour. He couldn't stop thinking about Kate, about her tears, her vulnerability, her strength, and the way she looked at him. He knew the feelings were inappropriate. He knew he couldn't cross the line, but the truth already lived in him, and pretending otherwise was becoming impossible. When Thursday finally arrived, neither of them felt ready, but both of them showed up anyway. Kate walked into his office, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Stephen stood from his chair the moment she entered. He never did that for anyone else. A small smile softened his face, but there was tension in his shoulders, a quiet worry in his eyes. She sat down across from him. The room felt different, charged, fragile, and full of things they hadn't said. Stephen cleared his throat quietly. How have you been this week? She gave a small, honest answer. A little lost. He nodded, as he expected that. I'm sorry. That's a heavy feeling to carry. Kate stared at her hands. It's been heavy for a long time. She didn't mean to sound emotional, but something about being in that room near him made honesty spill out. Stephen leaned forward slightly, the way he always did when he wanted her to feel safe. Do you want to talk about it? He asked. She shifted her eyes and looked at him. Really looked at him. He wasn't just calm or professional today. He looked conflicted, like every word he wanted to say was fighting with every rule he had to follow. I don't know where to start, she whispered. Start anywhere. I'm here, he replied softly. She knew she was falling for him in ways she didn't know how to control. She took a deep breath. Last week, you were finding it hard to stay objective. What do you mean? Stephen froze. He didn't expect her to ask. His fingers tightened around the pen in his hand before he slowly set it down. I shouldn't have let it happen. I wasn't supposed to show you that. Kate, you're important. I care about your progress. I care because you matter as a person, not just a client. Stephen looked down as if ashamed of the truth, but too tired to keep hiding it. I've crossed into feelings I shouldn't have, even if I never acted on them, even if I never would. Kate felt warmth rise through her chest, mixing with confusion and longing. She didn't want him to feel guilty for caring. She didn't want him to carry that alone. It's not one-sided, she whispered. Kate, you don't have to say that. But it's true. You need someone who can give you everything without boundaries. And right now, I can't be that person. The words hurt, but they were honest. Kate felt the tears sting her eyes, not from pain, but from the bittersweet truth they were finally sharing. I didn't come here for romantic feelings. I came here because I needed help. But somewhere along the way, you became important to me too. Stephen's expression softened with something deep and unspoken. He stood up slowly and walked toward the window, needing space to keep himself steady. I wish I could tell you everything, he whispered. Every truth I've swallowed. Every moment I felt something I wasn't allowed to feel. Too drawn to something. Then tell me one thing, she said. I don't expect anything from you. I know, he whispered. I know. That makes it even harder. I can't continue our sessions. It's the only way to protect you and protect the line we can't cross. Kate felt her heart drop, but she understood. It doesn't mean I don't care. It means I care enough to step back. Tears slipped down Kate's cheeks as she nodded. She wished things were different. She wished timing and rules didn't matter. She knew that Stephen was doing what he believed was right. As she walked to the door, he spoke again softly. Thank you. Thank you for being someone I'll never forget. She turned, eyes shimmering. I won't forget you either. And with that, she stepped out, leaving behind the man who had changed her life, not through romance or promises, but through a connection so deep it had to be protected by letting go. Thank you. I hope you liked my story. If you did, please hit that like button and please subscribe. Thank you. Have a nice day.